Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Sailing the East podcast. I'm Bela and Mike. This episode will be a bit different than the usual conversation between my co-host Mike and I. In this episode, I will interview Carter Jepsen. Carter wrote us back in episode number 22, asking for some tips and suggestions as he was getting ready to do his first bareboat sailing charter with his wife. For you see, Carter is the sailor, and his wife is not. So he wanted to make sure they both had a good experience, as his goal is to make bareboat chartering a regular event. Carter sent us an email post-charter saying that after a bit of a sleep-deprived first 2 days, the charter went well, and they are already planning their next charter. I asked Carter if he would be a guest on the podcast and share with our listeners how the bareboat charter went and things he learned. So let's dive right into the interview with Carter. Hello, listeners. Today, I'm here with Carter Jepsen. He's going to be our guest for this podcast. And Carter reached out to us a number of weeks ago and wrote us an email and said that he and his spouse would be going to the BVI for their first time together to charter a boat. And that Carter has sailed a fair number of times, but his spouse was kind of new to the whole sport. So he was asking for some advice, and Mike and I addressed that in this podcast back in episode 22. And last week, I got an email from Carter that said, hey, we finished our charter, and I think the best way to summarize how that went was the last sentence in your email, which said, the good news is we're already planning our next charter. So welcome to the show, Carter.
Thanks, Bela.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So tell us a little bit about how you decided to do a charter together.
Well, it's been a lifelong, once you get the sailing bug, you got the bug.
Yeah.
And it's been a lifelong dream for me to do that with Carrie, with my wife. And it sort of rose to the top of the bucket list.
Very nice. Very nice. And what sort of made you select the BVI as opposed to, all the other places one can charter a boat?
Well, one thing is that we were a little stir crazy, as everybody's been through COVID.
Sure.
And I said, if we're going to take a vacation, let's take a good vacation.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to sail in the BVIs a couple times. So as I describe it, it's Disney World for sailors. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So we had to go through address a few hurdles to get there.
Yeah.
There's a BVI passport that you have to fill out and to get admitted to the island. That includes two, COVID tests here, COVID test when you get off the airplane, COVID test day 4. You have to buy trip insurance. You have to, a number of things like that.
Yeah.
And a day and a half before we're going to our charter, I still hadn't gotten it approved. So I'm calling people at the BVI Tourism Bureau, but then everything worked out fine.
Yeah. So because of whole COVID pandemic that's going on, and hopefully at some point in time this will all end and we'll get back to normal, it's gotten much more challenging to travel to foreign countries and to do a charter there. And I think that, my hat's off to you for saying, you know what, we're going to go through that. And I think you're right. The BVI is sort of the Disneyland of the sail. It's a sailboat mecca. Now, when you got there, how did you find the islands? Because, they got pretty much wiped out or devastated by a pretty big hurricane, or I think a 1-2 punch a number of years ago. And have things pretty much sort of recovered?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, you couldn't tell. Everything's lush and everything seems very well put together. That is until you get on your sailboat and start to leave the marina and you see that the top third of a few masts still sticking out of the water, right near where we're docked. So it was a very, sobering reminder
Yeah.
of the power, of that storm. And then you could, as we sailed through the islands, you could see a good number of, fabulous homes that were just devastated, and they, haven't gotten around to fixing them yet. And then also in a couple of the ports there where they do work on sailboats, there were hundreds of masts of boats that visible, of boats on the hard, obviously, waiting for insurance settlements or to be rebuilt or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
So signs of it, but not evident everywhere. You have to look for it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your sailing experience. Where did you grow up? Where'd you sail? How'd you get the bug, et cetera?
Yeah. So, I've been sailing since I was, my parents had dragged me up and put me on the sailboat when I was 9 months old. But I did grow up on Long Island Sound, and went through that was my summer camp is sailboat racing every summer on Long Island Sound. And then in my teen years, my parents got a cruising sailboat, and so we'd spend our summer vacation just going back and forth, to Cutty, Bach Island, Nantucket, all along the shore of Connecticut and Rhode Island, like
Yep.
And it's been second nature to me. And then I bought my dad's sailboat when he retired and moved to Florida, and raced that up on Sacandaga Reservoir. For many years.
Very nice. So it's sort of in your blood, right? You've been doing this for fundamentally, it's been part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Critical part of your life. And so, was this the first time that you and your spouse actually went sailing together?
Well, we have a couple little sailboats that we, like a Sunfish and a little boat called a Turnabout, if maybe from Buzzards Bay. So small, very small craft.
Okay.
So my wife's very comfortable on the water. We do a lot of canoeing together in all types of weather. And so she's not afraid of the water. She's a super strong swimmer. And an adventure, and she is adventuresome, so she agreed, wholeheartedly to do this.
Yeah, well, that's great. So, what sort of was the anxieties that let's say first that you had for this trip?
Well, again, knowing that I would be doing most of the sailing and the decision making involved in sailing by myself.
Yeah.
So, I always had to be on, I couldn't take risks.
Now, was this the first time you were the captain or the person in charge of a charter?
No, I'd done that earlier on, actually in college with my parents and some friends in the BVIs.
Oh, okay.
So I was the captain at that time.
Yeah.
So, and I know enough about reading charts and, trip planning and, and making sure everybody's safe and happy and not getting seasick and all that. So,
yeah.
So actually, in the sailing part went very well. And I think I mentioned to you in an email that we had planned to get a 38-foot boat, and somebody else had gotten that. So they set us up with a 45-foot boat. I was, mixed feelings. Oh, wow, this is awesome.
Yes.
But holy crap, this is a lot of boat.
Yeah.
But the sailing part went well. For the first 3 days, something did not go well that I do want to share with you.
Yeah. We'll chat about that. So I had a few more questions. I know that when I've gone on other people's boats, whether it be a 3 or 4 day passage, even just a day sail, my anxiety level is a lot lower than if it's on my boat or if I'm the captain and it's on a charter, right? It's just, maybe that's me, but I get very much sort of tied up and interested about, okay, where are we going next? What are we doing, right? And making sure everything's working, checking the bilges all the time, kind of doing all those things that, well, I feel responsible. And and when I've been crew, I've had a much more laissez-faire attitude, and I've just sort of looked around and sort of said, okay, let's make sure the person driving the boat doesn't do something that's going to get us in a big trouble, right? So I've been sort of like keep us out of trouble, but I haven't worried about the little things. Do you find that same experience?
Yes, and for sure, and and there's a time when you're on,
Yeah.
Right, and that's when you leave the dock or leave the mooring ball to the time that the anchor is set, or you pick up the mooring ball.
Yeah.
And so very much on during that time. And I followed your advice and I kept the sailing for most of the days under 4 hours.
Yeah.
A couple of days it was only 3. And then look forward to the time when okay, I can relax, have my first rum drink, go for a swim, and then let my hair down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good observation, because there are some places where you can charter a boat, where you can do that, where you can sail 10 or 20 miles to the next port or the next mooring or anchorage, and you're okay. There are other places where it's a lot further, and so you have a much longer day of sailing. So I think that's a critical sort of decision point in sort of thinking one of these trips through is, are there short hops that we can do so that we're doing fun stuff. We're doing other things than just sailing all the time. And the BVI is one of those places.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the snorkeling was great. Sightseeing, walks on the beach. Now, because of COVID, we couldn't go to establishments, and a good many of the popular tourist spots are still closed.
Oh, wow. So you were really on the boat, so to speak, for the most part.
Yeah, rigid quarantine until it actually was the 6th day before we could go get off the boat, other than go to a beach.
Yes.
A secluded beach in a quarantined area. And go into an establishment. But actually, it was okay. We brought some good books, and we had good food, and lots of snorkeling and swimming and things like that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Who did you charter with? What was the company's name?
We went with the Moorings.
Oh, okay, great. And how did they do a good job?
Yeah, they did a terrific job.
Very nice. That's good to hear.
It seems like they're probably only 25% capacity, so a lot of boats on other docks, that were obviously not going in or out. The day we got there, there were a lot of boats going out. I would say of the fleet of maybe they had 40 boats going in and out, but I think maybe 10 boats went out that day. So a lot of people had the same idea that we did. So they were busy, but it's a class operation. The boat was great.
And was it
the provisioning was great. Everything is on they call it island time. So,
right. Was it a monohull or a cat?
Yeah, monohull.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, the little Beneteau 45. That's a very popular boat. 3 cabins.
Yeah.
3 heads.
Yeah. And so was there sort of a briefing, like a typical charter, sort of a captain's briefing before, or a briefing they gave to you before you took off?
Some of those things they've moved to online, like the traditional chart briefing is online. You watch that ahead of time. The safety briefing is ahead of time. They still do the boat checkout, taking you through all of the mechanicals on the boat and making sure everything's in place and working, and with one of their staff. And there were a couple of things, little nit things that I found, that they fixed within a half hour so we could be on our way.
Yeah. And what type of credentials did they want from you to be able to order to charter the boat?
I just gave them just a letter of what I'd done. I had chartered with them with a captain maybe 15 years ago on an even larger boat. So
you sent them your sailing resume, basically.
Yeah, it's a sailing resume, and I thought they might ask a question or two, or say, we just want to sail around the bay there with you, but they didn't.
Yes. Yeah,
In retrospect, I might, if I had to do it over again, I might have gone out with somebody for a couple hours anyway, just on a what I call a shakedown.
Yeah.
Cruise with the boat, because I didn't know the boat, and I got to know the boat, but I think I would have had a better time earlier if I had gone out with somebody that could address some of the things I found as I was.
Yeah, that's a good observation, because I find it much easier to hop into one car brand versus another car brand, because the turn signals are all about at the same place, the steering wheel's in the same place, but on boats it's
but
not quite
the wipers.
yeah, right.
And they don't.
Yeah, the wipers not right. The wipers and turning on the headlights always gets me, and sometimes turning off the emergency brake. But in a boat, I find the differences are larger, right? So when you go on a new boat, there is this sort of challenge of sort of, even sometimes the battery switch, right? Where's the switch to switch from battery A to battery B, or how to turn on the chart plotter, where the master switch is, where the circuit breaker panel is, right? All those things are different on different boats, and I think your notion of going out with a captain for, even if just for 2 or 3 hours, is really a good recommendation. To again bring that anxiety level down, to get your comfort up with the particular vessel you're on.
Yes, because even though the gentleman that checked us out was terrific and very thorough, the chart plotter, I never got to really master everything he showed me.
Yeah,
on that.
Sure. Yeah, they're all different. I remember we chartered on Lake Champlain once. Well, actually numerous times, but one of the times we chartered on Lake Champlain, we didn't go over, we didn't even turn on the chart plotter, right? It was one I was familiar with, who said fine. And so we got the briefing. I think we slept on the boat that night, right at the marina. The next morning we get up, I turn on the chart plotter, and everything's in French. And I go, now what? Right. So I had to call up the company and say, oh yeah, there's a language, someplace in the menus, deep down in the menus, there's a place where you can pick your language. And, but that would have been something that we would have caught certainly if we had gone out, or at least spent a little bit more time. And sometimes, as you're saying, the place may be busy and they have, one person has 2 or 3 briefings to do and they're hustling you along.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So in your email to me, you said the first couple days were a bit of a challenge. So take me through there.
Yeah. So again, we spent the first night on the boat, at the marina, and so we got a early start, and that was great. And of course, I'm gung ho, and I hoist all the sails, looking at what the wind is in the harbor, not out in the sea. So we had a nice adventuresome sail, and I decided, of course, to go, on the outside of the islands, the outside of the Sir Francis Drake channel. So the seas are a little bigger, but it went well.
So you dove in head first on the first morning.
Dove in head first, and so I might not do that again. I might have stayed in the channel where the swells are a little smaller and the like. But we had a great sail. The first, and I should preface this by describing, as part of the COVID protocol, there are 14 anchorages identified by the BVIs of where you can stay until you clear quarantine on day 5. So 14, and that really, some of them are real close together, so it's really like 10. And they're not the best. They're not near any establishments, of course.
Probably by design, yeah.
And you have to fly you have a transponder with you, so they're tracking your location, as well as you have your quarantine flag, a yellow flag that I have proudly in my office here now. So a lot of those boats are also going to those same first anchorages, particularly the day 0 anchorage, which are special anchorages. So we got there, we dropped our hook, everything was fine. I sort of made sure it was out of the west, the prevailing wind, using, anchoring 101.
Yep.
But what I did not count on or expect was the southerly swells. And so then the wind picks up at night sometimes this time of year. So the wind was coming over the top of the hills. This was on Peter Island. A beautiful anchorage, but the wind swirling around and the swells were pretty significant. The sun goes down, and then the sensory perception picks in, where you have the boat swirling, the boat's rocking. We're a little tired. You have the halyards clanking on the mast, and the stand-up paddleboard going thump thump every time you go over a swell.
Yeah.
And
Little sensory overload.
yeah, so suffice to say, the first few nights we didn't sleep well.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the anchor dragging,
Yeah.
and so that it was fine the second day, but after a couple nights of not sleeping well, we were a little fatigued.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was and but the third, the fourth night, we found the perfect anchorage, protected from swells, protected from the wind, a mooring ball, and we slept really well. And for the rest of the vacation, it was night and day.
Yeah. So are there options down at the BVI where you can hop from marina to marina, or you can, make a reservation for a morning ball?
You could make reservations for mooring balls. You didn't need to.
Got it.
Right around now, they are aplenty.
Yes.
um, and you could go back into the moorings marina to stay if you want. And we talked about that, but it wasn't that bad.
Understand. Yeah. So there's not like a string of marinas on each island that you could kind of marina hop.
Well, correct. And until you clear COVID, you can't go into those areas.
Got it. Got it.
So again, these are small little anchorage areas that are identified on the map, and you can read about them, but they're not big.
Yes.
And again, they were not the secluded ones. Like if, for example, if you know the Bight on Norman Island, which is a beautiful bay, secluded from swells and wind and restaurants. I mean, that's where we spent our last night, and went to shore for a nice meal, and again, lots of mooring balls, but we couldn't avail ourselves of that until we had cleared COVID.
Got it. Yeah, that first night on the boat and how well you sleep, I think has a multiple day impact that follows. Right. Clearly. Right.
Yeah. So again, the first few days are a little tough. And then again, when you're tired and then you go hoist all the sails and go sailing aggressively like I did, I did too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you find cooking on the boat? How did that experience go for you guys?
We like to cook. And so we've done a fair amount of planning with some of your advice as well about one pot meals.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the provisioning was terrific, and the freezer on the boat worked great. So we had a lot of shrimp and rice and beans. And
so the moorings did the provisioning for you.
They did most of the provisioning. There's also an organic farm on the island of Tortola. And we ordered a mid-size provisioning box from them, which came with different fruits and vegetables and greens that lasted the entire week. And it was a godsend and really helped us cooking. We had spinach and arugula and limes and plantains and baby eggplants and on and on and on. And it was a delight to be able to reach into that box and use high-quality fresh food.
Right.
And it's funny, and I had to call them to give them my credit card to settle up, and I got into a conversation with the owner, and they gave me great ideas. So how do you cook plantains again? Gave me spent a lot of time with me, going through some ideas and menu planning, how to use the baby eggplants and things like that.
Oh, very nice. I know all of the times that I've chartered, I've always done my own provisioning. I don't know why, but it's like, the first night you're there, we go to the grocery store and, we buy all this food and find that half of it's left over at the end of the charter because we want way too much of one thing, but not enough of the other. But I guess with the quarantine, that was a little more of a challenge for you guys to be able to do that.
Yeah. So we did do a lot more pre-planning.
Yeah.
And, when we came back in for our day 4 test, we got another bag of ice and another bottle of wine and another stick of butter and a couple. But we actually had planned very well. And the last breakfast, it was the last couple drops of milk on the granola.
Yes.
And so it worked out really well. And we enjoyed cooking on the boat. It was, the grill off the stern is terrific, and it worked out real well.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. Now, you're talking about doing it again. That was the last sentence of your email to me, that we're planning our next charter. And do you have a special place you're thinking of going to?
Well, I think we're going to stay a little closer to home, meaning we're thinking of St. Petersburg, Florida.
I've been there. I've chartered out of there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to talk to you about that. My daughter, husband, and my new granddaughter live in Tampa. So we were thinking it'd be a great way to see them, and maybe I also get a little help for the first couple days sailing.
Sure.
And so that's what we're thinking of.
Yeah, we did a week charter. My son, his wife, and myself. We did a week-long charter out of St. Pete. Flew into Tampa. That was really easy. A short drive to the marina, and we chartered out of there and sailed around the bay, and then went out into the Gulf a couple of times and came back in. A lot of marinas there that you can stay at. Anchorages were a little more sparse from the point of view of, at least we didn't find any, and not that we looked all that hard. I find that when we go out, I like staying at marinas. I can get off the boat, and here was a situation where my son was a sailor, but his wife was not. So this was kind of her very first sailing, charter experience, if you will, with her father-in-law and her husband. And so we wanted to make sure we kind of got off the boat every day. We're able to walk around town a little bit. And of course, this was a number of years ago, pre-COVID. So I think you'll enjoy Tampa Bay and St. Pete and stuff.
Great. Yeah, I really want to try to get to Sanibel and Captiva. Did you get that far south?
No, we did not. We did not. We actually had went out into the Gulf for a day, and we were heading back to one of the marinas on the ICW. So not all the way into St. Pete, but right on the coast there. And the wind died down, and the engine wouldn't start. So we got our first sea tow experience, right? Because they had the charter company had sea tow, and we called them up, and we had a good 2-hour tow back to the marina, and they gave us a different boat, a bigger boat, sort of like you, and so it all worked out. But that sort of did cut into our ability to go further away, because we sort of lost a day and a half, if you will, by the time we turned all that stuff around. Yeah.
One thing, talking about getting to know a boat and those little issues of like the engine not starting,
yes.
I did find I spent a lot of time with the manual for the vessel while on the boat. I don't know if I could have done that ahead of time. It might have been wise. Just all of the systems on the boat,
Yeah.
There's so many alarms on these things too, there are alarms going off for some reason, or there's a beep or a light on, and you gotta address it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, for all sailors and even experienced ones, that's a challenge, right? You're right. These alarms go off now, and I'll tell you, one time we were coming back from Florida. I was helping a friend bring a boat back from Florida, from Miami area up to Annapolis, and it was at night, and there was no wind, so we were running the engine, and the owner of the boat, I was like I said, pretty relaxed. Every couple hours, the owner would go down and check the bilge, just out of a habit. And he goes down there, and he comes up, and he's white. And he was a very inexperienced sailor. And I was sort of the experienced person on this boat. And he said to me, "The bilge is full of water." And I said, "Oh my gosh." So I dove down there, and, the first thing you do is I stick my finger in the water, and then I stick it in my mouth. Is it fresh water or is it salt water? And it was fresh water. So, okay, good. So at least it's not coming in from the outside. but it probably took us a good 2 hours to figure out what had happened. And because the engine was running, we didn't hear the bilge pump running, and the water pump. And we had left the water pump on, to pressurize the water system, and a hose blew off. And so the water pump just pumped all the water from the tank into the bilge. and the small bilge pump that's at the bottom of the bilge didn't turn on for some reason. And only the big one turned on, which is, that's sort of on this boat was 1.5 feet of water in the bilge before the big pump turned on. So the point being is that each of these boats are different, and the sounds are different. And I think chartering is a challenge from that perspective.
Yes. And as I look back when I chartered a few decades ago, the boat was vastly more complicated.
Yes, that's right. They have gotten more complicated. That's right. Very good. So, what were the lessons that you learned? I mean, if someone is listening to this podcast and they're saying, "Hey, this is great," I'm struggling with the same thing. How can I get my partner, my spouse, my girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, to go on one of these trips? What sort of advice would you give them, Carter?
Well, like we covered before, make sure you have help or go out with a skipper for a half a day. The other is just, you'll laugh, but set the sails for the wind you're going to have, not the wind you have.
Yes.
When you set the sails, especially if you're, 2 people on the boat, because when you're out there and the wind's blowing, you don't want to be adjusting sails if you don't have to.
Right. I
mean, if you have to, you have to, but it's not something where the captain wants to be running around on the foredeck, while the mate is steering the boat. You want, if that has to happen, that's okay, but you don't want to do that a lot.
And the sails are much more challenging to bring in and reef when the wind is howling.
Yes.
Right. You do it, in a 5 mile an hour breeze to practice, and hey, this is easy. The boat's not moving. And
if someone's not familiar with sailing in that type of situation, nothing can raise the anxiety level than the sheets whipping around and all the noise and the hubbub of it. Another thing is, piece of advice is not to bring up the idea of practicing a man overboard drill when the wind is blowing. As I did with my wife, and it didn't go over real well.
Yeah, practice that in the harbor.
After a couple nights of not sleeping, but but in all seriousness, we should have gone over that because every boat's different. Where the safety equipment is and the steps to take. We should have gone over that before we left the dock.
Yeah.
And we didn't, and that was a mistake. And so I did think of it as I was running around the boat while it's on autopilot. If I fell overboard, Gary needs to know what to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the right time to bring it up.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Did the boat come with harnesses and jack lines?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen a charter boat that comes with those.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I have them on my boat, and I routinely put them out. Even if we're just going for a sail that looks like a calm sail. Because sometimes there's just 2 of you on the boat.
Right. And there was, and we were, sometimes we went outside the channel.
Yeah.
Just that was part of the trip planning, and it was great sailing. But yeah, it's a little bit more serious stuff when you're out there.
Yeah, well, even in a 3 or 4 foot swell, you can disappear pretty quick. You could be floating. Your life jacket can be floating you, but you don't stick out of the water that far.
Yeah.
And even I'm relatively comfortable turning the boat around and knowing what to do and go back. It's still pretty high anxiety times if that happens to somebody.
Yes, and. For a good part of several of the days, we didn't see many boats out.
Right.
Oh, I mean, it would have been, figuring out what you, how to address the situation, maybe making a radio call, and but there's nobody around to help.
Yeah, yeah. And what things? So if I got your wife on here, and I said, so what were the things that went well? What do you think her response to that would be?
I think once we got the mooring plan down,
yes,
that went real well. So probably should have talked to some folks at the at the moorings before I set out. I've been there. I know all these islands. I had my book and my maps and a plan, but it wasn't the right plan. So,
well, when you say mooring plan, you mean instead of anchoring, picking up a mooring ball? Yes.
Yeah, that just took a lot of stress out of the equation.
Yes.
It was just one less thing to worry about, and it felt good.
Yes.
Rather than me saying, okay, why is he swimming out to the end and checking the anchor? Why would he have to? Why do you have to do that?
Right.
So here's a funny, an interesting story. At one of the anchorage, the second night, we dropped the hook. And at night, on a perfect sand bottom, except I picked up a little piece of probably an old coral on the hook. And I went out in the morning, and we had dragged like 10 feet until I got caught on something else.
Yes.
Didn't know it, but it was, oh, wow, I should have swam this yesterday.
Yeah.
And Bela, this is an interesting story. So I'm swimming out there in the morning, just checking it, and I want to know exactly where it is. So as I pull the anchor up, I want to make sure I'm not going to be too close to another boat. And if I was, I'd alert them. And I'm looking down at our anchor. This is probably in maybe 14 feet of water. And next to the anchor is a very good size turtle. Probably 32 inches, the shell 32 inches long, plus the fin and the head. And the small line that's attached to the anchor that you tie to the davit to keep the anchor from whipping around was around the turtle's neck.
Oh, gosh.
So I'm thinking, that now I've got to go back to the boat and tell Carrie that we have to call the park service to go have the turtle rescued. They're probably going to give me a ticket for picking up a piece of coral with my anchor to boot. So it was just terrible. But then all of a sudden the turtle flapped its fins and swam away.
Yeah.
And the anchor came up great, and we were on our way.
Yeah.
So, but was potentially a really bad morning turned out to be a okay experience, and I got to see a really nice turtle.
Yeah, that's a good story. When I anchor, I always have at least some level of anchor anxiety, as I like to call it. It's just something about a mooring ball just feels so much more secure. But an anchor, there's always, I set an anchor alarm, I do all that kind of stuff. And, then of course, when the anchor alarm goes off at night, then what do you do? It's like the CO2 detector in your house going off at 2 a.m. Oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Well, you don't have to worry about the spacing between the boats,
right.
And then if somebody comes in after you, and
right. That's
too close. So that would have been the thing that Carrie said. Yeah, Carter, why didn't we do this mooring ball thing?
Yeah,
the first couple nights.
That's good advice. Yeah, that's good advice. What else would she say?
We also started sailing earlier in the day, when it was a little cooler, the wind was a little calmer, and then we'd have the afternoon to play. So that was another thing we started doing early on. We'd sort of skip breakfast, or just make coffee at 6 a.m. and by 7 we were underway.
Yeah.
And we had those are some of the nicest days of sailing for us.
Yeah, because the wind's not blowing as hard, right? Because it builds as the day progresses typically.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, we did really good, planning for, we each got sunburned on our back while snorkeling.
Yeah.
Rookie maneuver. uh,
Yeah.
Other than that, we took good care of ourselves and sunscreen and
Yeah.
the like.
Well, great. Sounds like it was a really good trip, Carter.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I'm
a little bit of adventure and a little bit of vacation. Well, yeah, we didn't sit around a lot. I mean,
yeah. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm really glad that it worked out well, and you had a great trip. I really thank you for being a guest on the show and sort of follow up to your email to us originally, and we addressed it back in episode 22. So I hope.
Thanks, and love your podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this episode will probably come out in the next several days, actually. So I'll make sure I let you know when it comes out, and I hope maybe we can sail together sometime this summer on Narragansett Bay.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, Carter. Bye-bye. I hope you all enjoyed the interview with Carter. It was great to hear they had a successful charter. So listeners, thank you for joining us for another great episode. We hope you found this episode interesting and thought-provoking. If you have questions about what we discussed, please get in touch with us. Our email is sailingtheeast@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed the podcast, let us know, and better yet, tell a friend. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York, fair winds and calm seas.